Hey guys, it's Wayne Fillmore, and I am here live with another broadcast. And today's title of today's broadcast is Micro, Macro, and Darwin, a recorrecting of evolutionary theory. And so this broadcast was basically inspired by some research that I've done over the last few weeks, or better yet, the last week, and having a few conversations with people who actually believe in common descent, which is a part of the field of evolutionary biology. And for the most part, I have to say that as a creationist, the creationist party, we have a lot of recorrecting to do. Um, the Bible commands us as Christians to correct each other. Jesus was the one who said, if your brother sins against you, first go to him in private, and if he doesn't listen to you, then go to him with a brother, and if he doesn't listen to you and the brother, go and tell the church, right? Isn't that what Jesus said? And so when somebody is bearing false witness against their neighbor, somebody is telling something about either their neighbor, their friend, or their enemy that isn't true, it's our job to come to them and correct them on those issues. And hopefully, the person who is making these accusations, unbeknowingly or not, they can correct them. It's our job to tell that person what they're doing wrong. And after you do that, we wash our hands of it and we correct them ourselves. And so this broadcast is just that's exactly what I'm doing. I am recorrecting the false accusations and the false terminology and how can I even put this, the false witness, because I mean, misrepresenting somebody's worldview is actually bearing false witness against your neighbor. And so, me as a creationist, me as a Christian, I definitely wouldn't want anybody in the Christian sect or the younger creationists or even older creationist group to have their reputation as a liar. It's one thing to lie to somebody and know that you're lying, but it's a whole another thing to to not know, or and vice versa. If somebody lies to you and they knowingly know that what they're telling you is a lie, that's worse than somebody who's lying and not knowing that they're lying. And so, this presentation I'm about to show you guys, this is just based off of the research that I've done. And if somebody doesn't agree with the research that I've done, you can inbox me. You can email me. My email is dr.fillmore@gmail.com. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, are you a doctor? How come your email is drfillmore@gmail.com?" Well, I made the email like when I was like 13, and the reason why I made the email was because I like Dr. Phil, and my last name is Fillmore. So I said, "Oh, I might as well make an email uh, in honor of Dr. Phil, not me, but it was for Dr. Phil." So with that being said, let me show you guys the presentation to knock that out the way. And after that, we're going to have a after hangout with some other people, and we'll talk about the presentation that I gave, and we'll talk about where all of this is leading, or where all of this has basically led, because now we're looking at the fruits of these people's, or of the creationist laborers, who I honestly believe that they in their heart of hearts truly believe that the arguments they're using is right, you know, but they're not. They're misrepresentations and strawman arguments. So with that being said, let me show you guys a fresh presentation of evolutionary theory. So, can creationists really be scientists? A lot of people always say, well, because, creationists don't believe in evolution, they can't be scientists. And there actually are creationists who do believe in evolution, and there's creationists who don't believe in evolution. There um, are some scientists who claim not to be creationists and they don't believe in evolution. And there are some scientists who aren't Christians, who aren't creationists, and then they believe in evolution too. So, I mean, just because a scientist has a certain sect of belief, evolutionary or not, that doesn't make them a scientist. What makes them a science is, or what makes them a scientist is, can they actually do the work in the scientific field that their degree is in? Somebody is an evolutionary biologist. Can they do evolutionary biology? If somebody works in the field of comparative anatomy, can they tell you about the anatomy of a human, a mouse, a bird, and a whale, and what they have in common? Can somebody do what they claim they can do if they have that degree in their field? And that's what makes somebody a scientist in their respective field. Now, creationists can be scientists just like evolutionists can be scientists. They don't have a problem doing either. If you had a creationist and an evolutionist in the same room trying to make a laptop, right, they would probably agree on how to make the laptop. What they probably wouldn't agree on is how the parts or the origin of the parts. Maybe that's just me joking. But we can do operational sciences just like anybody else. Evolutionists can be operational sciences just like anybody else and everybody else. But we only disagree on the forensics of it. And I say, we can't look back directly at the past, go back in time and see exactly what happened. But both sides have their own interpretation of the forensic evidence. But this isn't really what that presentation is for. So 600 scientists agree Darwinian evolution isn't science, and there's a difference, and I'll get into that in my presentation. So this is basically just a list of 600 plus scientists who say, hey, I don't believe in Darwinian evolution, and I don't think it's a part of science, which is cool and great. But evolution happens. Evolution is a fact. Darwinian evolution, however, that's where people disagree on. And there's a difference between micro, macro, and Darwinian. And I actually changed my mind on macro after somebody who does believe in common descent actually gave me proof of macroevolution. So I changed my mind. And so who knows, maybe some of these scientists might actually change their mind on Darwinian evolution. Whether they do or don't, it really wouldn't matter. The key proponents of science is macro and micro. Those are what we do see. I don't know if people who believe in macroevolution automatically believe in Darwinian evolution. That's a straw man in equivocation, because you believe in Darwinian evolution, or because you believe in macroevolution, you believe in Darwinian evolution. I'll get into that in a minute. So we're talking about evolution, right? And we're talking about macro, micro, and Darwinian evolution, and we're testing out these different theories, right? And we're trying to see if they align up with science or the scientific method. And so the dictionary defines the scientific method as principles and procedures for the systematic pursuit of knowledge involving the recognition and formulation of a problem, the collection of data through observation and experiment, and formulation and testing and hypothesis. That was a lot of ands. So the scientific method works as so. First you ask a question, then you state a hypothesis, then you conduct an experiment, then you analyze the results, then you make a conclusion. So, evolution defined. Evolution is a change in the frequency of a genetically determined characteristics within a population over time. That is correct. Microevolution occurs when there are minor differences in allowed frequency between populations of the same species. Macroevolution occurs when there are differences that have occurred over long periods that have resulted in so much genetic change that new kinds of species are produced. That comes from Concepts in Biology, edition 2007, chapter 13.1. This definition says microevolution is an evolutionary change involving the gradual accumulation of mutants leading to new varieties within a species. Macroevolution is the evolution of large taxonic groups, such as genera, and families. University of Berkeley says this. It says microevolution happens on a small scale within a single population, while macroevolution happens on a scale that transcends the boundaries of single species. So, this is actually Darwin's own definition of Darwinian evolution. This is a direct quote from Charles Darwin. Darwinian evolution is a hypothesis first publicly proposed by Charles Darwin in his book, Origin of Species, published in 1859. His hypothesis read, therefore, I should infer from analogy that probably all the organic beings which have ever lived on this earth have descended from some one primordial form into which life was first breathed. Charles Darwin on the Origin of Species. This is the 2007 edition, chapter 14, page 303. So, University of Berkeley says this. A species is often defined as a group of individuals that actually or potentially interbreed in nature. In this sense, a species is the biggest gene pool possible under natural conditions. For example, if happy face spiders look different, but since they can interbreed, they are considered the same species. And here are the happy face spiders. So this actually would be Darwinian evolution. Darwinian evolution is literally life from non-life, slowly over time, through evolution of different families, right? So you have the dog family up at the top, turn it into the human genre or family. So that would be Darwinian evolution. One family or one genre turn it into another genre. And if you look back, I'll show you this definition. This definition of macroevolution is different than this definition of macroevolution. This comes from the 2007 biology textbook, and this definition comes from dictionary.reference.com. This is an equivocation of macroevolution because this macroevolution is saying that this is this, but it's not. They are completely different. And so they both are the same word, but they both have two different definitions. So you really have to look at where you get your definitions from. So, I mean, me personally, I would get my information from the biology textbook. This came from online, and I actually just caught that. That actually is an equivocation. So even the dictionary is equivocating the macroevolution view into the Darwinian view. The Darwinian view says that one family or one genre can slowly over time evolve into another family or one genre. Family being like the dog family or the cat family, et cetera, et cetera. So this definition of equivocation is basically saying that, you know, some people who assert evolution, they assert equivocation, and they assert that because microevolution is true, where we see small changes, right, in a variation or small changes in a population that leads to a species, right? That also leads to Darwinian evolution, which is life from non-life slowly evolving over time into a different family. So, what is microevolution? Well, microevolution would just be it would be defined as a speciation, or what we call natural selection. Well, it's actually possible through natural selection, but it will be defined as speciation. Speciation would be actually the definition that just came up from Berkeley. Species that can interbreed within, or species that can breed together, or a population that can breed together. I'm sorry, guys. Now, there's something called allopatric speciation. This would be macroevolution. And for a lot of you guys watching for the first time, you guys probably don't know what allopatric speciation is. So if you look at these school of fish over here all the way to the left, they can't mate with these school of fish. They can't interbreed together. So allopatric speciation. Species are made due to natural selection and split into new species that can't interbreed with old species due to allopatric speciation. This happens because the information is no longer in the new species to be compatible with the old ones. Allopatric speciation occurs when there is extreme geographical isolation from child and parent species after a significant period of separation that allows communities of the child species to begin to flourish. This is paralleled by not only epigenetic influence, but mutation takes hold at the genetic level. The organisms no longer are able to sexually reproduce with the original parent species. Allopatric speciation disables the function of the chromosomes to pair and cross over during the first mitotic division following fertilization. This makes the species no longer able to reproduce with the original parent population, even in captive situations. Geographic isolation most often occurs with populations that are completely separated, allopatric, by a physical barrier such as mountain ranges, rivers, or desert. The separated populations adapt to their own unique environment, becoming so genetically different from one another that members of the one population cannot breed with members of the other. Allopatric speciation. This would be a large change in the genome over a period of time. Now, so microevolution is small changes that happen, and that can happen both ways. Macroevolution is big changes, but we only see that happen in one way, as I know. Macroevolution happens in a downward spiral, and these are really big changes that can happen. Microevolution, from as far as I know, it can happen both ways. Small changes going forward, small changes going back. We do see cells lose fitness, right, faster than they gain them. This is an example of genetic entropy. So genetic entropy is this. This website explains genetic entropy as so. Mutations continuously accumulate in the population, with each generation being more mutant than the last. So not only do we undergo genetic degeneration personally, we also are undergoing genetic degeneration as a population. This is essentially evolution going the wrong way. Natural selection can slow down but cannot stop genetic entropy on the population level. Macroevolution is true. Macroevolution is true. And I even have to admit it. It is true. It is a large change in our population. However, it's not a large change in a population where the changes are necessarily beneficial. These are necessarily bad changes that result in genetic entropy. We've seen micro changes that lead up to macro changes, speciation, which leads to allopatric speciation. The problem is those are both losses of information. The only gradual climb of information we've seen are in micro changes adding up step by step. Never a 2 or 3 step process. So this is kind of the irreducible complexity argument, but I simplified it a little bit better. Think about it this way. A watch needs all its parts in order to work. If you take away one part, it will be obsolete. DNA is the same way. The reason we see DNA break down in large chunks rather than build in large ones is because our DNA is just like the parts of a watch. It's easier to break than put back together. James Mtor, PhD, Kale professor of chemistry, and he works at Rice University. He says, I have been labeled as an intelligent design proponent. I do not know how to use science to prove intelligent design, although some others might. I am sympathetic to the arguments on the matter, and I find some of them intriguing, but the scientific proof is not there, in my opinion, so I prefer to be free of that intelligent design label. From what I can see, microevolution is a fact. We see it all around us regarding small changes within a species, and biologists determine this procedure in their labs on a daily basis. Hence, there is no argument regarding microevolution. The core of the debate for me, therefore, is the extrapolation of microevolution to macroevolution. So when this guy is talking, this is the confusion that I'm talking about. We have been so confused due to the arguments that have been coming up from the younger creationists or even just older creationists, whoever is making up these arguments. I know one of the most famous arguments that almost every younger creationist can basically quote is Hovind's argument. Macroevolution is a change of kind. It's going from one change, from one kind of animal to another, from a dog to a cat, from a cat to an amphibian. that is not macroevolution. It's obvious that people who quote these arguments, they don't understand macroevolution. I didn't understand macroevolution, but this is what I'm talking about. He equivocated, and this guy is a PhD professor. He equivocated macroevolution for Darwinian evolution. Darwinian evolution is a change in family genus. Macroevolution is a change in species, or it's a change in a population, a large change in a population over a long phenomenal period of time. And as a matter of fact, over a phenomenal period of time, we actually have some of those large changes. It's called the genetic load. Even though we have people with crooked teeth and messed up eyes and crooked pinkies and stuff like that. So, I mean, we really have seen a very big change over a long period of time in a large population. Seelke, this guy received his PhD in microbiology from the University of Minnesota, and he was in the Mayo Graduate School of Medicine in 1981, et cetera, et cetera. Dr. Seelke says microevolution is something that can be observed, and macroevolution is something that has never been seen, but you would possibly infer from the fossil record. Once again, he equivocated. That is not macroevolution. No, I'm sorry. He's actually right. He's actually right when it comes to evolution on the species level, not on the family genus level. He's right on that. I'm sorry. Microevolution would be the evolution of antibiotic resistant evolution, resistant to pesticides that insects and plants develop. So it's the sort of thing that are very important issues because people die because bacteria become resistant to antibiotic. Well, as macroevolution would be the larger things, taking the large leaps, moving from a fish to an amphibian or a reptile to a mammal. He equivocated right there. That is not macroevolution. That is Darwinian evolution. And actually, right here, this guy, he signed a descent from Darwin paper. And these guys are dissenting from Darwinian evolution. Basically, the evolution that says that life came from non-life, abiogenesis, and then through a gradual climb over, millions of years, one family taxon evolved into another family taxon. So, cladistics. Cladistics is a particular method of hypothesizing relationships among organisms like other methods. It has its own set of assumptions, procedures, and limitations. What assumptions do cladists make? There are three basic assumptions in cladistics. Any group of organisms are related by descent from a common ancestor. The first assumption is a general assumption made for all evolutionary biology. It essentially means that life arose on Earth all at once, and therefore all organisms are related in some way or other. So, it is a fact. It is a fact that the dog family will never produce anything but dogs, right? Now, one of the past myths that people who believe in Darwinian evolution believe, they say that, a change in a family genus, right? Like a dog could one day become an amphibian or a reptile, etc. If you give it enough time, millions of years in the future. These are Darwinists. These aren't necessarily evolutionists, right? So they believe that a change could happen in the family genus if you give it enough time in the future. That's what they used to say. Now, what they say today is, if you get enough time, it could have happened millions of years ago. So these people aren't necessarily believers in macroevolution. I believe in macroevolution. There are people who believe in macro and micro. There are people who only believe in micro because they think macro is Darwinian. But people who believe in Darwinian evolution believe that now, today, we won't ever see a change in a family genus, but it did happen millions of years ago. And they say it can't happen today because we don't have enough time. So, as far as I know from the experiments that I have researched, I have not seen any evidence for it. I'm open to it, but haven't seen anything for it yet. And it's a fact that, as to my knowledge, it never happened. So this is Darwinism circular reasoning. believers in Darwinism, they say all organisms are related because they have similar parts, because they have common ancestor, because all organisms are related. And so, just like the presentation I gave you in Cladistics, say the first assumption is a general assumption made for all evolutionary biology. It essentially means that life arose on Earth once, and therefore all organisms are related. That is the assumption they make. And I actually admire them for actually saying they make an assumption. That's their assumption. Can't prove it. It's an assumption. This field is called comparative anatomy. Right? Comparative anatomy is the study of body structures of different species of animals in order to understand the adaptive changes they have undergone in the course of evolution from common ancestors. This would be more or less a belief in Darwinian evolution when it comes to common ancestry. Myth, because certain species have similar parts, they must be related. It is a fact that it is true that certain species have similarities with each other, but the similarities alone, they don't determine if they're related. It's also the differences they do have to take into consideration. So also, just my little 2 cents. Why can't similar designs mean there was a similar designer? That's a hypothesis too. So evolutionists, and by evolutionists, it means Darwinists. Darwinists tend to focus on the similarities. Creationists focus on the differences. So this video right here, I want to show you guys. I actually have it in the Hangout. And there you go. All right, and that's as much as the video I can show before I get a copyright strike. I'm going to take you guys back to my last little bit of my presentation, and then I will be done. So this is basically just saying that, and I'll summarize it for you guys. But there was an evolutionary biologist. His name is Professor Richard Linsky. He works at the Michigan State University. He was evolving basically E. coli since the late 1980s, and he evolved 40,000 generations of E. coli or bacteria, and that's equal to 1 million years. So over the course of 25 years, he actually witnessed 1 million years of evolution. He had 12 class of bacteria, and he watched them grow up every day. each day 1% of the content that was in the flask, they went into a new flask. And he watched 6.4 or 6.64 generations of growth. So that 6.64 generations is where evolution can take place. Linsky was evolving them in a medium where there was really little food, really little glucose, and the bacteria got better at using this food, and so they evolved. They didn't evolve into like a new type of or they didn't evolve into anything else but bacteria, but nonetheless they did evolve. Linsky analyzed the gene changes, right? And over the course of 40,000 generations, only 5 genes changed over the course of 25 years. And not to mention that the first or the most change, it came in 2 years. And right here, here's a timeline of his data, which you can go on at Michigan State University. You can go and you can look up the experiment for yourself. And this is the image of his data that he did. So what can evolution really do? Dr. Seelke's experiment. So can a cell evolve a new function if 2 steps were required, 2 mutations, right? So Dr. Seelke, this is basically his scientific method for his experiment. His hypothesis was multiple things have to happen before a useful cellular machine is produced. Dr. Seelke says, I gave the microbe the task of evolving a new function. I deliberately disabled the gene and knows it's only, or he knew it was only, he knew it only required 2 changes to gain this new function. And I've only gotten 2,000 generations and tested 1.5 trillion cells. So far, it appears that a requirement for 2 changes at once is an evolution stopper. The microbe can't get beyond the barrier. So his conclusion from his experiment that he did, Dr. Seelke concluded, if each step of the way evolution is advantageous, then a microbe can evolve many changes you want. If you have 4 or 5 steps leading to this new function, and each steps make the bacteria better, then it will work its way up. But as soon as the microbe is required to do 2 functions at once, it's an evolution stopper. So Michael Behe, he did a protein experiment in 2004, stimulating evolution by gene duplication of protein features. It's a peer-reviewed paper written by David Snoke at the University of Pittsburgh and Michael Behe of the University of Lehigh in 2004. The pair demonstrated through experimentation that multiple mutations were required to produce a functional bond between 2 proteins. Then the mechanism of gene duplication and point mutation alone will be ineffective because few multicellular species reach the required populations. In 2008, in the journal Genetics, at first, the critics of the pair tried to refute them, but they found that in a human population, to obtain only 2 simultaneous mutations, they would take more than 100 million years, which counters the origin account of Darwinian molecular man evolution, stating that man came into existence in only 6 million years. So macroevolution is the teaching that, or not even a teaching, I mean, this happens, but the origin account according to macroevolution, not Darwinian evolution, is basically, it states that we are the result of a species split from our common ancestor, and they say our common ancestor is chimps. So they say, we're on the same taxon level as chimps because we have similar parts. We have similar this, we have similar that. Therefore, we are in the animal kingdom, and we are a different species of apes, right? And so they say we split from these apes, and we are the result of allopatric speciation. Now, has anybody proven this to my knowledge? No. In my opinion, all theory, but you're welcome to believe it. That's pretty much it. That's my spin on it. But I don't agree with it. But the least I can do is present their argument the right way. So what does this mean? Evolution works fine in a step-by-step single mutation change, and that's fine. That's what we see in nature. One small or minor change in the population in a short period of time. But as soon as two steps are required at the same time, which is required in order for all the functions to work, as far as we can tell, it takes too much of a time span to observe. We have only observed step by step micro evolutionary gains through millions of years. We do observe macro changes as well, but only going the wrong way. What does this mean? Supporters of Darwinian common descent need to get a new hypothesis. And that is my presentation of micro, macro, and Darwin recorrecting the theory of evolution. So with that being said, I just wanted to make sure that I presented the arguments the right way, in a fresh way. We see so many arguments time and time and again where we see this change of kind argument. Darwinian evolution or macroevolution is a change of kind. Even in the definition I gave you guys before, you saw it. That dictionary the dictionary equivocated, and the people who were making up the definition in the dictionary didn't know the difference between macro and Darwinian evolution. There is a big difference. Microevolution, it can go forward or backwards, but these are small changes. Macroevolution can only go backwards. Darwinian evolution can never happen at all. That has never happened, in my opinion. And people believe in it, but as far as I can tell, you're not being scientifically consistent with what we do see. We haven't seen macroevolutionary changes going forward either, but heck, it's more probable than Darwinian evolution. A lot of people believed in Darwinian evolution a couple hundred years ago. Now people believe in macro and microevolution. With that being said, I just wanted to make sure that I give the opposing view a fair shake, and I wanted to just represent their views the right way, in an honest, sincere way, because that's what Christians do. So with that being said, if you guys want a copy of this PowerPoint, you guys can email me, drfillmore@gmail.com, and I'll send you a viewable copy of this PowerPoint. You guys can share it around, give me one. Maybe you want to strengthen somebody's faith. You can believe in macroevolution and still keep your faith in God. You can believe in microevolution and still keep your faith in God. Can you believe in Darwinian evolution and still keep your faith in God? I have no idea. But with that being said, whether you're a younger creationist, an older creationist, even if you're an evolutionary theist creationist or whatever that would be, you can believe in these things and still keep your faith in God. I just don't know how you can believe in full-blown molecule-to-man evolution and still be theologically and historically consistent with the Bible. But nonetheless, you can do it. Those things don't determine whether or not if you're saved or not. What determines if you're a Christian is, do you have faith in Jesus Christ? And it has to be the right Jesus Christ. Jesus even said, if you don't believe I am he, meaning if you don't believe I'm God, you will die in your sins. So with that being said, for the people who are watching, I just want to give you just a quick rendition of the gospel. And some of you guys probably don't know what the gospel is, but long story short, the creation science account of the gospel would be, in the beginning, God made everything very good. God made everything in 6 literal days. God made everything that's in the heaven and the earth and everything that's in the sea and everything that's in the world in 6 literal 24-hour days. He made Adam and Eve, and Adam and Eve disobeyed God. And as a result, God introduced genetic entropy to our DNA and entropy to the universe. So now everything runs down. That's basically what sin is. And so we run down, the universe runs down, and as a result, 2,000 years after that, God sent his son Jesus Christ to live a perfect life for you and me, to die for our sins. What is sin? Sin is a crime against God. If you've ever lied, if you've ever stolen, if you ever cheated, Jesus said, if you've ever looked at a woman with lust, you have had sex with her in your heart. You have committed adultery with her in your heart, because having sex outside of marriage, one man, one woman, is a sin. So nobody's perfect. We've all sinned. Adam sinned, Eve sinned. I'm pretty sure that somebody in your family has sinned at least once. And that's a result of genetic entropy. And our sin problem is only getting worse. So 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ, the God-man, stepped into history to be our relative, lived a perfect life for my sins, your sins. Every time you lied, he didn't lie. Every time you went out and you fornicated, you had sex out of marriage, he didn't have sex out of marriage. Every time you wanted to hurt somebody or do harm to somebody, he never had any of those thoughts. And he died on the cross for your sins and for my sins. What does that mean? Jesus died for my sins. At that time and place, Jesus Christ was on the cross. There was a literal transference where all of your sin on your account, right? Because the Bible says that on the day of judgment, the book of your life will be opened up, and everything that you've ever done, good or bad, is in that book. And so all of the bad deeds from your account was transferred onto Jesus's account, and all of the good works from his account was transferred onto your account. Now, this is just a theory, but my theory on this is, and this can't be proven, just a theory, but I believe that at the point in time Jesus Christ died on the cross for your sins and my sins, there was a spiritual vertical gene transfer where Jesus's genes got transferred to, and Jesus's genes got transferred into our body, and our body got transferred into Jesus. Our genes got transferred into Jesus's body, and so there was a swap. There was a ransom, and all you have to do if you want to accept this gift to have your sins, all of your crimes against God, your lying, your stealing, your adultery, etc. All you have to do is accept it. It's a free gift. Accept that Jesus Christ died on the cross for your sins, and you will literally be washed by Jesus' blood from the cross. Not literally. It's a metaphorical term. It's what the blood represents. So if you want to do that, all you have to do is ask God to save you. It's not really hard. If you have a Bible at home, pick it up and read it. And if you have a church that you can go to that church. If you haven't been saved today, what are you waiting for, man? It's never a better time to know Jesus Christ than today. And with that being said, I love you guys. I'll talk to you guys later.